I want to show you how you can go about using Photoshop's eyedropper tool to sample color, to lift color off of your artwork or off of your photographs, and then go ahead and paint with those colors. So, what I've decided to do is I want to paint the buttons on my robot chest, and I've decided that I want to paint them kind of a bright red. And the way that my colors are set up right now is I have the dark gray in my foreground color swatch, and I have that light gray in the background there. So what I'm going to do is very simply is I'm going to head over to my swatches palette, and I'm going to go and find a red that I want to use. But what's interesting here is when I sample the red, when I click on the red color swatch, and then I move my eye back down to the bottom of the toolbox, I don't see red getting loaded into that foreground color swatch. What the heck is going on here? I want to be able to paint with that red, right? Well, check this out. I'm going to have a look up on my document tab where it reads my file name and the zoom percentage and also the color space. Right now, I'm inside a grayscale image. In other words, I'm inside a black and white image. Now, this relates to Photoshop's color modes, and I'm hoping that we'll have a little bit of time later on where I can give you a bit of a review on different color spaces or different color modes inside Photoshop. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this image, this cartoon robot, from a grayscale image to an RGB image. In other words, to an image that's made up of reds, greens, and blues. So to do so, I'm going to head up to the image menu and then down to mode. And sure enough, there's grayscale. I'm going to go ahead and choose RGB color instead. And now what Photoshop wants to do is it wants to either merge my layers or keep my layers intact for me when it goes about changing the color mode. So I'm of course going to choose don't merge because I want to keep my layers exactly the way they are. All right, wonderful. Now have a look down at the bottom of your toolbox and sure enough, there's red loaded into the foreground color swatch, meaning that you and I can now begin painting with red. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on my robot and I'll sort of pan until I have those buttons in the foreground here. And I'm going to start painting these guys here, and I'm just going to kind of do a quick job here. I don't want to spend too much screen time, actually painting here because you've seen how to paint before. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just do one of these buttons. So I'm going to paint this guy in here, something like this. I'll speed it up by increasing my brush size. There we go, something like that. So that's great. But now what I want to do, if I zoom out just a little bit, and I'm looking at my robot, and that's great. But now what I want to do is I want to switch back to that dark gray, and maybe what I'll do is I'll paint in the rest of his chest, sort of below his shoulders here. So what I could do is I could head over to the toolbox and look for the eyedropper tool and select them and then click on the color, the dark gray that I want to sample. But instead, I think what I'll do is I'll use a shortcut because again, I want to work a little faster here. So if you're on the Windows side, try holding down your Alt key. On the Mac here, I'm going to hold down Option, and while you hold down either Alt or Option, your cursor changes to the eyedropper tool. So now all I need to do is just single click on that gray color that I want to sample, or any color that I want to sample, just single click. And what happens there now is that dark gray is now loaded into the foreground color swatch again. And now, as soon as I let go of Alt or Option, by the way, I'm back on my brush tool. So now I can begin painting with that dark gray color once again, right? And I can paint in the sort of the center section, I guess you could say, of the robot. And then once I'm finished that, I might think, well, I want to go back to the red because I want to paint that other button on his chest, right? So then once again, what I'll do is I'll hold down Alt or Option, click on the color that I want to sample. That color gets loaded into the foreground color swatch, of course, as we know, and then I can continue painting with that color, something like this, right? Now, be careful you don't hit your P key by accident, which is what I did, instead of my my open angle bracket key. So I'll just color that in there, something like this. There we go. All right, and then once again, hold down Alt or Option, click on another color to sample, and then continue painting. So this is another technique, I guess you could say another keyboard shortcut that you can use to speed up the process of painting and working inside Photoshop.